Again, thank you everyone and good morning for joining us to this event organized by the Cork Smart Gateway. This is Vanessa, I coordinate the initiative and I give you a warm welcome to everyone here after a successful webinar series that we've been holding since October last year on different type of technologies and how those technologies can be used and applied to different type of businesses. We've seen that there is this need of making more collaborations work between industry and academia partners. And in Cork and in different parts of the country as well, we've seen successful stories. And this is actually an event to share those stories. And so with that in mind as well, like I would like to give a welcome to John Ford. He is a senior engineer at the Directorate for Economic Development, Enterprise and Tourism at Cork County Council. He sits at the Cork Smart Gateway steering committee and he represents as well the local authorities in this event. John has been involved in fruitful projects for the region, such as the digital hubs. He's responsible for the Council's Economic Development Fund and has been also has a key role in terms of EU projects. John, the floor is yours. Could you explain a little bit about the Cork Smart Gateway and how we work here?
Thanks very much, Vanessa. Good morning, everyone. And on behalf of Cork Smart Gateway, welcome to Enable Meets Cork. And in relation to Cork Smart Gateway, I suppose one definition of a smart community, a smart region, or smart city is that it's a place where integrated public services, energy, transport, and ICT technologies are employed to reduce the environmental impact and to promote the development of safe, sustainable, and efficient communities, particularly within the context of an aging society. What I suppose frightens me sometimes that by 2050, 66% of the world's population will be living in an urban environment. Then our challenge will be to provide these people with all of their energy needs, clean water and safe food in an economic, social and environmentally sustainable manner. Cork Smart Gateway is our local response to this global challenge. Its members are made up of UCC, MTU, the Tyndall National Institute, the Nimbus Research Centre, Energy Cork, IT at Cork, Cork Chamber, and both Cork City and County Council. We regard our mission as being, I suppose, to raise awareness about the products and services that are being developed by local companies in response to the challenge. We want to promote Cork as a smart region, and this in turn then, I suppose, helps us to enhance the appeal of Cork as a place to work, live, visit and invest in. Our strategy is focused on three main objectives, obviously to promote sustainability, to promote the development of safe and sustainable and resilient communities within the context of that aging society. But also, and this is why we're here today, is to, I suppose, to raise awareness amongst the community or the companies in our region about the 25 research centres that operate in the Cork region and their willingness to help SMEs to innovate, develop new products, services, and to overcome challenges. As Vanessa just said earlier this year, we ran a whole series of webinars on specific themes, and they too contain testimonials from some of the SMEs who have worked with the research centres, and they're all available to view on our website at corksmartgateway.ie. Our objective for this morning's session is that after the webinar, you would be, I suppose, sufficiently enthused to approach Enable or its three constituent research centres with a view to solving maybe a challenge that you have to overcome or to capitalise on opportunities that you may see in the development of new products or services. So thanks for joining us, and back to you, Vanessa.
Thank you so much, John. As I mentioned, like this is a very holistic initiative that we have here, embracing like the city, the county council, and the whole Cork region, as well with the industry partners, who I would like to thank as well and mention here, IT at Cork, Energy Cork, and the Cork Chamber of Commerce, and our academia partners as well, coming from UCC, MTU, and Tyndall National Institute. That being said as well, like since this event is supported by the Enable program that the three research centers here are part of, I would like to introduce you to Professor Siobhan Clark. She is a professor in computer science at Trinity College Dublin. She is actually the director and principal investigator of Enable and funding director as well of the Future Cities, which is the Trinity Center for Smart and Sustainable Cities. She has an amazing background in research as well, having written and authored papers and supported industry collaborations as well. So Professor Shaban will give us an overview of the Enable program and how it can support industry collaborations as well.
Thank you, Vanessa. And just, I hope you can all see that. I think John has really given us a very keen sense of what the challenges are. And I think a number of years ago, when we started to first do a lot of thinking about growing populations and trying to manage constrained resources, a number of us came together. But what Enable is really is a gathering of a lot of the most, if not all, of the expertise across Ireland, and it's a national research programme addressing challenges on smart cities and communities. And our focus is mainly on technologies to address those kinds of sustainability challenges that John was talking about. And we very much feel that the Ireland 2040 strategic investment priority, I think the government also recognises the challenges that we're going to face in the future here. And Enable is a programme that gathers it's collaborative, it gathers multiple disciplines to try and address those challenges. Now, a key, I suppose, point for us is that it is collaborative with companies. It's a targeted project model, and we work with both companies and public authorities in a sort of a shared cost model. I think that Mark Cooney is going to explain to you later. We also have social scientists involved, and that we also engage in citizens, because we all know there's no point in us putting together as city managers or technologists a load of cool solutions unless citizens are on board with us. So we've been around for a number of years now, launched in 2018. So 2018 doesn't sound that long ago, but a key point for us is that when we gathered all the expertise, if we looked we gathered the expertise from three of the SFI research centres, in particular Connect, which is the host centre. Connect is the Centre for Future Technologies and the Internet of Things. Insight, the Data Analytics Research Centre, and Neuro, the Software Research Centre. And you'll see there a number of we work with multinationals, we work with government organisations and SMEs. And I think it's this major collaboration is what's needed to address the really, really significant challenges that we are going to face with these growing populations and constrained resources. And the three centres that work together are very much at the core of a sort of a paradigm that we believe is very is critical to I suppose developing and researching technologies to enable solutions to those challenges. And that paradigm is sense, analyze, actually. So gathering data, sensing data, understanding the information in the real time, what's going on in real time in the environment, being able to analyze that data and make decisions as a result of that analysis, and actually make changes for the better in the environment, while also engaging with citizens. So that's a sort of a core paradigm that we work with. And if you see the research strands on the right, there are a number of core research strands in each of those areas related to scale, uncertainty in the environment, and lots of research challenges in sensing, actuating, connected, and how to do those decisions in a connected way, worrying about security and privacy, and of course this cross-cutting concern of citizen engagement. And today we've focused on mobility, environment, networks, and buildings in the way that in I suppose finding problems that need solutions that for enabling technologies. So I really sort of, I suppose what's really exciting for me with Enable is that, and I've alluded to it a number of times already, is the depth of and breadth of expertise that we have at a national level that we can call on. So even aside from the computer scientists and the engineers and the statisticians that you might expect, we also have the social scientists and a huge range even within those fields. So engaging with Enable really gives you a sort of an insight, I suppose, a way into a broad scope of the expertise at a national level. Now, I'm not going to go into all of these. This slide is very busy, but it's really just a sort of a selection of the kinds of projects that we've been working on with companies. And it's just to give you an indication of the sort of the scope and of the companies that we work with. And as I said, Mark will explain to you how we can engage. And you'll see there's mobility, there's networking, there's environment and buildings within that. So it's a selection right across the scope of our expertise. But we also, of course, work with public authorities, and you see there we're strong involvement with Smart Dublin and Cork Smart Gateway and TAI. So I mean, there's obviously quite a lot we could talk about within the context of any one of these, but I think Vanessa's put together a really nice program for this morning on discussions. So I'll leave it there. Thank you very much. Happy to take any questions, Vanessa, if that's appropriate. I still have time.
Thank you very much, Siobhan. Yes, we have the Q&A, so if anybody has any questions, please, you can always put them there in the Q&A box. As Siobhan mentioned, we will also have Mark Cooney, here, and he comes from the Connect Center. He is the industry program manager at Connect and has over 20 years of experience in high-tech and business sectors and collaborations. He has served in a number of senior technical and managerial roles, like with Philips, Intel, and IBEC. So Mark, I give you the floor now to you so you can explain a little bit more how to engage with the research. And by the end of the event, after we have all the chat with our brilliant speakers here, we will also have a poll where you can express your interest. But for now, we will hear about the engagement with Mark.
Thanks, Vanessa. Good morning, everybody. I hope you can see my screen okay.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so I want to just do a short introduction to the SFI research centers and talk a little bit about what they are in particular for those companies who perhaps may not have heard about them or what their purpose is or how to engage with them indeed. So I suppose in this instance, Ireland is very fortunate to have a very large and diverse funding landscape for research, development and innovation. And there are a number of bodies who are charged with administering and delivering the funds in relation to the various aspects that are available. But it can be quite a confusing landscape to understand, to navigate and to engage with. So you've got bodies like Science Foundation Ireland, Enterprise Ireland, the IDA, and then beyond into Europe, with the Horizon Europe program and so forth. And really the question mark is, okay, well, what is out there and how do we engage with it and how can it benefit us as companies? And so today in particular, we're going to focus on Science Foundation Ireland in particular. I will mention also a little bit about Enterprise Ireland and Horizon Europe. But Science Foundation Ireland is the main body which is responsible for funding science in the country, typically focusing on technology readiness levels from 0 to 7. So that's from very basic research up to kind of prototype level and all the kind of various stages in between. Enterprise Ireland is the body which overlaps a little bit with that and takes it further towards the actual commercial deployment and implementation phase. And of course, IDA you're very familiar with, which is largely responsible for foreign direct investment, but also brings in and supports innovation and research activities in its own right as well. And then Horizon Europe obviously allows us to engage more broadly with European-based activity in the research context and in the innovation context. So, oops, let's see. Oh. Sorry, my screen seems to be a bit slow moving. Okay, so the center, the SFI research centers program. So what is that, right? So that has a number of key objectives which were set out by the government and SFI a number of years ago, and that is by and large to really improve Ireland's performance collectively, scientifically, to set up really world leading large-scale research centers that can compete globally with the best in the world, and also not just scientifically, but also to provide major economic impact to the country. And then another really significant aspect is to increase the level of industrial and commercial collaboration, and also co-investment by industry and commercial organizations into the research base, to extend the level of investment into the ecosystem, and also to find avenues and outlets for the commercial realization of the research that is being conducted. So typically universities are very good at doing basic research, but progressing that from the research phase and into the real world where it can be made of use to wider society is a challenge that's by and large beyond the universities, and that's where engagement with industry is critically important. So the research centers program is in large part designed to assist in that regard. So there are 16 large research centers in the country. They're established since 2012. They comprise over 1,300 researchers, world-class researchers across all of these research centers. Connect, Insight, and Lero are 3 of these research centers. The level of investment is quite impressive from the SFI side. Public investment at this stage is almost 700 million euro. And then from the industry side is approaching about 500 million euros. So really staggering sums over the course of the last number of years. Very large scale collaborations with companies in hundreds of projects, over 500 companies at this stage as well, involved at all levels. Multiple examples of successful licensing of technology that's been developed and progressed into real world impacts, creation of jobs, and so on. And the type of things that the research centers do, and some of you who are engaged with Enable see this already. So collaborative research with industry is a key aspect of what we do. So this is where companies and researchers come together, identify a particular challenge of interest, primarily and often motivated by the company, and they set up a project to investigate the challenge and to come up with ideas and solutions which can be licensed to the company, which can then go and progress those further into commercial outcomes. And these projects were briefly mentioned earlier. They can take the form of what we call targeted projects, which are co-funded, or they can be fully funded projects. And I'll speak briefly about what the differences are about that in a moment. There are other examples of different research programs that the centers can help you access and facilitate, including Horizon Europe, other SFI programs besides the research center programs, and indeed beyond that. And then it's also interesting to note and be aware that the centers conduct their own research, their typical, what is traditionally understood to be basic research within academia, where they're really kind of challenging the boundaries of the future and looking beyond the horizon and what's out there, what's coming down in 5, 10, 15, 20 years time. What is 6G and 7G and so forth, for example, in the context of ICT and beyond. And then another significant and really important aspect of what the centers do is education and public engagement to promote science and the pursuit of science and the importance of science to wider society, both formally through education programs, but also through informal things such as workshops and webinars and so on and so forth. Okay, so then we've mentioned Enable. Enable is a fantastic example of how a number of centers have come together, and that's Connect, Lero, and Insight, and those 3, as Siobhan mentioned. So they bring together critical skills and capabilities in the area of data, connectivity, and software, and they provide solutions and so forth in the area of smart urban environments. And so I suppose part of the message there is that the research centers offer in themselves levels of capability, and then collectively they can also offer as a sort of a one-stop shop to enable companies to understand, well, what is it that you do and how can you help? And here are the challenges that we have and how do we find solutions for these things? So all of the centers are really well positioned to help you to quickly and efficiently get to identify and to work with the right people in the right institutions, at an effective price point, an affordable price point. So I think that's a key aspect of the research centers. So there are a number of funding options when you do get into to collaborate with us. As I mentioned, you can co-fund projects or you can fully fund them. All of the centers have really significant awards that are funds that have been given to us by the government that are relevant over the next 6 years. Collectively, between Insight and Lero and Connect, we have in excess of 30 million euro available for co-funding. So that's money that we can match with funding that you would provide. Or you also have the option to fully fund the project. There are differences in terms of the level of ownership of the results of the projects. So if you co-fund projects, the access is available by way of an exclusive license. Or if you fully fund a project, then it confers greater ownership rights. So you can fully own the results of the project and the IP. And those there are pros and cons to both aspects. Obviously, there's a lower cost on the one hand, and indeed a more limited access to the results, but that may be appropriate and sufficient in certain instances for you to conduct or to pursue your interests. I suppose it's worth noting here that we already have these funds we are in possession of these funds, so there's no further application required in that regard. There's no limit or duration to the size of projects within that envelope of just over 30 million. All of the centers have operations teams, which include people like myself and other colleagues who are on the call here, who can assist with the administrative activities that are required to set up these things and to interact with our researchers and to help define them. And there aren't any deadlines as such beyond within the 6-year window. I want to also mention as well just that we have also very good and close connections with our colleagues in Enterprise Ireland. And so for the innovation and commercialization levels, so sort of technology readiness levels 4 to 9, where we're basically bringing the research to life. So we work really closely with our colleagues there. And Enterprise Ireland has a whole host of schemes which are available both directly for companies, but also for collaboration with universities and with research centers. So examples would include the Innovation Vouchers Program, where an EI will give you a 5,000 euro voucher, which you can spend with the university to undertake a small kind of investigative projects, and then larger innovation partnership programs and various other ones as well. And we can help you to kind of put those together. These require funding applications. It can be a little bit tricky to navigate at times, but we're very keen to help in this regard also. And then finally, just to mention that we work with all of our centers have teams in place to pursue the funding that is available through Horizon Europe. So we're well positioned to be able to work with you, for example, in putting together proposals to find partners, and both in Ireland and abroad. So I think this is a really exciting and useful benefit of being part of the research centers in the country. So I suppose this is a key message, right? We have lots of expertise available. We have lots of funding available as well. Where our expertise is really relevant to companies such as yourselves. You've seen already some examples through Enable in the Smart Community program that Siobhan has described, and there's many others that we can kind of help with. So we can help both collectively and individually with companies. Kinds of things that we can do here. This is just, I think, the last slide. And so obviously we can do collaborative research projects. We've got various ways of accessing the IP that arises from this. We've got various schemes to channel our people. So, I mentioned the 1,300 researchers that we have. So we've got many people at PhD and postdoctoral level who are seeking jobs and are very well qualified to work with companies such as yourselves. As part of their training and their research, we can also facilitate placements and internships within your companies. We've got a huge array of research infrastructure which is available for access to companies, both for specific projects, but also on a needs basis. Generally, we've got incredible expertise across the country, a really fantastic and diverse researcher community with expertise that just is really at a world-class level. We can help you to access Horizon Europe and really much more besides. So apologies for running slightly over time, and that's just my brief introduction to the research centre. So please do come and talk to us, talk to Vanessa, or talk to ourselves, and I guess we'll be making the slides and contact details available afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. As we can see here, when there is a will, there is a way. So thank you very much for that overview of the centers, specifically. So Dr. Manur currently leads the external research development activities for the Collins Aerospace Applied Research and Technology Organization. He also has broad experience, over 18 years of experience on research and innovation management. And he also has experience in collaborations, strategic partnerships, working in research and technology development in areas related to cyber physical systems, aerospace, security, and energy. And on the other side, we have Professor Ken Brown, who is a professor in the School of Computer Science and Information Technology in University College Cork. He is also a principal investigator of the Insight Center at UCC, and his research challenges focus on decision making. So he's also recognized in industry ranging from multinational and SMEs collaborations, and a principal investigator of Enable as well. So thank you very much for joining us. My first question is actually for Dr. Manur. I would like to hear, how did the collaboration begin with Insight?
Yeah, so I think this is it's a little bit more easier for us because we are a research organization ourselves. So we are kind of the central research organization for the corporation. And it's our mission to look at low to mid TRL, investigate new solutions, try to figure out what the company needs to do, either to better compete or to find new opportunities and make our products perform better. So again, like, it's our mission, and to do that, we have to, in our mission, to engage with universities, and research centers are an excellent forum for kind of, rather than going for one individual university, you have the whole offering that is organized around centers of excellence for specific topics. I would like just to add one element to, as a company, you either want to solve a problem and you don't necessarily know what's the solution. In our case, we often come with one extra step, or to say, this is our problem, but we think these technology enablers are the way to go. And that really helps us to where to go to. Do we want kind of data analytics? Do we want artificial intelligence? Do we want sensor technology, etc.? And this is the context in which we, it wasn't that complicated for us to say, okay, for Insight and the team in Cork will help us in problems around optimization and things like that, or smart living in that context. Is that I hope that gives you kind of a quick feedback on.
Absolutely, and completely agree that technology are actually enablers for solving challenges that we face. And in that sense as well, Ken, what can you tell us about what would be like the key elements that allow to have a successful relationship with Collins Aerospace?
So for us, the first thing that was really attractive about Collins and the lab in Cork was that they were originally part of a wide, a bigger company with lots of different application areas. And so they came with a whole suite of different problem areas and different applications that we could spend some time trying to match their interests with what we were able to do in the lab. So we had that whole wide vista in front of us to choose the areas that could benefit the company and fit into our research plan. The other real attractor for working with the Collins Lab was that they have internationally leading researchers as part of their industry team, and so it wasn't just us providing a service to them. It was a genuine collaboration, and that we learned from them in the type of work we were doing and the different technologies.
Great. And Manur, how important was this collaboration with Insight? What did it do for your organization? How did you perceive like the outcomes of it, and how do you see like also in the future for your organization.
Yeah, I would like just, and maybe not expand a lot of time here, but just to clarify for the wider audience. So now we're called Collins Aerospace. And this is one company out of a bigger family or bigger corporation called Raytheon Technologies. A year and a half ago, we were called United Technologies Research Center. It's the same organization. And we were part of United Technologies Corporation. That was a large conglomerate working on building automation or the built environment, the smart living type of technologies, and the aerospace piece. And fortunately for some of the collaboration we're having with the Insight team, the building area has been kind of spinned out and replaced with defense companies. So we are still the same organization in terms of size, 200,000 people, around 80 billion type of revenue. That hasn't changed much, but we are more focused on aerospace, security, and defense. But that still allows me. I was in the time when we were collaboration with Insight, and I can tell you more a little bit on how we did that. But this is kind of just a due comment, so everybody understand the context. Calling an aerospace company, and the examples are about buildings and Otis and carriers. So that's just to clarify the situation here. Regarding your point about, I think you were asking about kind of how we define the topics when we approach the research center. Is that a?
Yes. How was
Yes.
the approach, and how important was that collaboration?
Yeah. I come back to the way we do research. So the problem with successful companies don't have time to spare for. And a lot of time to spare for disruptive technologies, for things that are maybe not directly related to the product. So it's something that we would like to investigate: exploratory research, disruptive technologies. There is a specific way of doing that. So we allocate small effort to do that. But then we rely on collaboration, innovation through collaboration. And the best way of doing innovation through collaboration is to reach out, first of all, to universities, not only to universities, but universities, SMEs, and the innovation ecosystem, be it local or global. But universities is really kind of a must go and do to at least kind of fail fast, test prototypes, evaluate some technologies, and that's kind of goes without to say. So we have that in our DNA, and we do it all the time. It is very important that when you do this type of research, you do it as kind of Ken has mentioned. We have a bunch of researchers as well, so we do it in a collaborative way. Like we don't, we're not a tendering. Like we don't send you something and then I see you in 6 months and see is that a good thing or not. So we have regular meetings, we have quarterly reviews of those programs to really make sure that there is value for us and we understand how our things are going, and we are not afraid of changing course if things doesn't work. So it's really, we try to maximize the value of the collaboration, and I think it has been quite successful in that context. So it is important for us. It helps us evaluate disruptive technologies and do some exploratory research, and you have to spend quality time to evaluate that. Otherwise, it's just a tick in a box, and that's not the way we do it. So it's very important for us.
Thank you, Miriam. And Ken, how was that time spending between the two partners here, like Insight and now Collins Aerospace? Can you tell us more a little bit about like how did you push the boundaries to advance into your research?
Sure. So one of the topics we worked on with the Collins Lab was in the area of scheduling of maintenance engineers. So they have installed equipment in cities and buildings across the world, which they have to maintain. So we were looking at the topic of how we do that scheduling, but in particular we were concentrating on scheduling the staff and how they move around the cities or move around the urban area and the countries. So through the discussions with Collins, we were investigating different aspects of it, including things like the impact on the city. So we were looking in particular about scheduling the engineers so that they were They were able to move when the traffic was low, when they were able to find parking spaces so their vans weren't sitting blocking traffic on a busy junction during the time of the day. But also during the discussions with the company, we moved more into the area of trying to satisfy the interests of the workers rather than just the bottom line of the profits or the costs for the scheduling. So we're spending a lot of time talking to people who actually did this maintenance scheduling, talking to some of the maintenance engineers, trying to find out what would make the job better for the technicians that we were doing the scheduling for. And that was a longer term aim to try and keep the workforce happy, so that although it wasn't fitting into the very short term cost model, it was designed to improve overall productivity and satisfaction of the workforce. And that led to a new area of research for us. We had done work before on preference modeling, but now we were doing it specifically on preference modeling for this aspect of workforce scheduling. And we've been able to continue that into a number of different application domains after that the work with Collins had finished.
Amazing. And Ken, so based on that, like you're obviously working with cities, with city elements as well, with people, how do you see like the future of cities in that sense?
How do we see the future of cities?
Yeah,
so
the research and your interest, like how do you?
Yeah. So that one's difficult. For me, particularly, my main interest is in this idea of mobility and smart mobility in cities. So we're looking at how we can improve the access that people have to the various urban facilities by making sure there are transport options available to them, and that could be shared vehicles, it could be better access to the bus routes and the bus networks or the tram networks. We also look, as I mentioned there in the scheduling, about the impact of deliveries on cities and trying to manage the way that the delivery companies send out their couriers to avoid causing hotspots in the city centre. So that if we can better schedule and better manage those deliveries, then we can make the city centre more attractive for the citizens, so that they're not stuck in traffic queues and they're not breathing in fumes from delivery vans sitting parked at the side of the road. So from our point of view, it's that all-round view of trying to make the city more efficient, but also better for its citizens, so that we have a sustainable living in our city.
Great, thank you very much, Ken. And this question goes for the two of you, since you've been working on this collaboration. What would you share some words of encouragement to the attendees here and to industry and other research organizations in general to work between each other? Like Manur, can you give us a words of encouragement after your experience?
No, I think success itself is an encouragement. Like if collaboration leads to some successful results, so that should be a gauge of worth. I mean, it is worthwhile doing this type of collaborations. In that context, I think from our perspective, hiring is a big deal. So this type of collaborations has been tremendously successful in hiring new talent. As you all know, for industry in particular, big corporations, hiring is a huge problem. So getting the right person, it's amazing. It's very difficult, and engaging with universities, testing the student or the PhD or the postdoc or whatever before they join us, that has been excellent. So that's one thing that I really encourage collaboration for at least hiring. That's one element. The other one, I would say it's more about it's difficult, but I think universities and academics are always looking for impact. So if somebody's moving from a university to industry, if you ask him the question why, he said, I'm lacking impact. I think those type of collaboration, it's challenging for a company to give you data and then to give you real problems to play with. But if that happens, this will really satisfy professors like Ken and others, because they are really looking at real problems, not synthetic data or whatever. And that's when collaboration is really truthful, built on trust and delivery. it's encouraged companies to give real problems and high impact or high value effort, which is really rewarding for academicians or for people from research and scope. So I think these are the two elements that I would say: benefits for industry in terms of hiring and in terms of getting IP, and I think that's very important. From universities, right, getting real problems and seeing impact. But again, it has to be around credibility, trust, and then invested effort from both parties.
Thank you very
much. That's what I can say. I hope it's encouraging enough.
Yes, and can you also give us another, like, some extra words of encouragement here?
Sure. I mean, for academics, certainly in areas like computer science, where we're a mix of applications and theory, the chance to work on real problems is critical. But it opens our eyes to aspects of the problems that you typically don't see in research papers or textbooks. You're actually looking at messy, dirty problems with all sorts of aspects that are normally just hidden away for the research. And so getting our hands on those problems is great. It also helps the researchers get a better understanding for what's really needed in the solutions. So it's not just a case of being able to write something up that looks good in a paper. It's actually going through the industrial process and really proving the technology and demonstrating that the methods used are the ones that are going to be best for the solution. And so it helps create, for us, more rounded researchers who better understand the use of technology can be applied to.
Brian Danaher from VMware, who will be in conversation with Dr. Donna O'Shea from Connect. Good morning to both of you. Brian is Senior Director of Architecture and Shared Services, CIO and CTO at VMware. He supervises groups such as the IT architecture team, the solutions operations group, and the tools and automation team. So welcome, Brian, and I also give the welcome to Dr. Donna O'Shea, who holds the professorship position of Chair of Cybersecurity in MTU. She's co-principal investigator at the SFI Center Confirm and funded investigator at Connect and Enable. And she currently leads the Higher Education Authority Human Capital Initiative project called Cyber Skills that is being around now, like we've heard much about it. So welcome to both of you, Donna and Brian. So now I know that you also have a very successful collaboration. So I would like to begin with the same question from the other group, like how it began. How did the collaboration begin between each other? Can you tell us about that, Brian? Let's hear the industry side.
Yeah, sure. And thanks for welcoming me along today. I suppose if you remember, if you go back to Mark's slide a few moments ago, down the bottom right-hand corner, he spoke about the IDA. So we had been working with the IDA on a feasibility study. So this was like a feasibility study for 5G Center of Excellence lab with our colleagues Dell. And that had been going for some time. And within that mechanism, I suppose there was funding for consultation and research. So we were looking to research into the 5G network slicing area. And in addition to that, we were developing platforms for what we call the Radio and Access Network Edge, or the telco platform for Radio Access Network Edge. And I suppose how it began was a combination of timing and opportunity. We already had very good relationships with CIT and Donna's team. We'd regularly met each other before. So we knew about the access to talent there. And, like Mark and spoke about earlier as well, it can be a complex area to understand. And I want to thank Mark as well for addressing all those questions we have. I'm sure we'll have more. But we were able to navigate the perfect solution for VMware. Now, VMware is synonymous with research, but historically not maybe so much in Ireland. So we had to kind of step carefully. So we opted for the wholly funded solution that Mark spoke about earlier, where we were able to fund that through the feasibility study. So it was like a win-win. So if I'm selling this, for example, to an internal organization or in DBUs, we got access to talent, we got access to the funding, and we got complete ownership of the IP that came out of that with the funding. So it was a kind of like a no-brainer, Vanessa, to sell that. And as it happened, Donna was right there with the timing, with the talent as well, that we got through Connect, and that's how I suppose it began.
Great, thank you, Brian. And Donna, what's the extra value that you saw working between VMware and Connect? How did it impact your research?
Yeah, I think that value is actually very multifaceted. First of all, I think we're working in a trust and partnership model with VMware, and through this trust and partnership, we're actually growing the region and developing the region in terms of R&D. And I think this is one of the biggest motivators for me to be actually supporting initiatives like this. And I think another piece of the values are actually supporting a company that is very committed to Cork and also very committed to deep and meaningful collaboration, and also support of MTU and other academic institutions, both regionally and nationally. And you can see that deep, meaningful commitment in everything that VMware does in terms of graduate formation, their whole attitude to, in EP, and also in terms of R&D. In terms of extra value to us, we've got access to infrastructure, a real 5G lab split over 2 domains that we wouldn't traditionally have access to. And we've actually developed a real understanding of where the industry is in terms of network slicing. And we are working with VMware and developing excellent science in an area that's critically important to not just VMware, but also is critically important to the advancement of society and the advancements in terms of digitalization. And I think really, for us in terms of impact in our research, we're generating results that are based on a real live test bed. We're working with a team of people, the VMware Telco Cloud Automation Group, that are truly professional and really know the industry really well, and we're getting that expertise fed into our research, and we're seeing our research being embedded into the VMware product suite, and that really is something really fantastic to see, the actual incorporation of our research into a real world product, which is the ultimate goal here.
Thank you, Donna. So I see that you also mentioned trust, and we had a previous group who also mentioned trust. So Brian, can you tell us, that based on that trust relationship that you had, what were the benefits as well that that you saw in-house? Was there professional development of the team? How did it impact as well, with the whole human?
Yeah, I completely agree with Donna. It was multifaceted, absolutely. So we wanted to solve some concrete problems, but like Dr. Manor mentioned earlier, sometimes we throw out a problem statement, but we're not exactly sure how to go about the research of that, and the research actually can take us in a different direction, by the way. So there's a kind of, I think it's like a lovely tension that exists between academia and industry, and I think that's a good tension, by the way, that where we're trying to link some of this research into solving real world problems for our products and services, whereas the researcher sometimes wants a broader spectrum of investigation. So where the trust comes in is you have to trust the talent, and we definitely have access to superb talent, and it's an extension, if you like, of thought share and diversity of thought share that VMware don't get internally. So the benefits are multifaceted. For one, we get to lock in some IP, which we've done with this project. Secondly, we get to, I think this is the exciting part really, is that we get to imagine what we do with that research. And it mightn't always have been solving the problem statement we came up with in the first place, by the way. But I think that what's healthy about that is just allowing and enabling the researcher to do the work, but also, and Donna was very clear about this at the start, we need to hold each other accountable, and we need to invest the time together in the project for it to be meaningful. So they were, I think, the key benefits to us. we locked in some IP, we furthered our research, we learned a lot more about the challenges of the industry in general. So not just the problem statement that we came up with. And of course, accessing the talent, that was huge.
Great. Thank you, Brian. And Donna, you also mentioned that you had access to resources that you wouldn't if the collaboration wouldn't have taken place. So can you tell us a little bit more about that, like about the openness of being aware to welcome you as a researcher, to welcome Connect as well to be part of?
Yeah, I think that maybe just to explain a small bit more about the project and what it actually entails. As part of the engagement, we're actually working with the VMware Telco Cloud Automation Group. This group is actually developing products for 5G. And in particular, it is looking at network slicing. Okay, so this is a key enabler for 5G. So as we all know, 5G are envisaged to support a whole new range of business models and use cases across a range of vertical industries, such as Industry 4.0 and smart healthcare. And basically, what VMware is doing is developing a product solution to support network operators to meet the demands for these different vertical industries. And in order to do this, they need to develop a way to actually design custom networks supporting varying requirements of these vertical industries in terms of performance, of cost, of bandwidth, and latency and security. And network slicing is basically the term that's used to describe the creation of these logical networks sliced on a single physical substrate that's customized to meet the divergent requirements of these different industries and use cases and business models of 5G. And at present, we're actually, the work is actually focused on dimensioning the core and developing an algorithm to solve the resource allocation problem and actually commissioning or instantiating the network slices. And the Telco Cloud Automation Group in the US basically are developing the solution for this at the moment. They have containers and, Kubernetes infrastructure, and they have a whole testbed already set up. I mean, it's not, we're just solving one particular problem of this big, huge area, and they've been working in this area for a large number of years and already have a significant amount of resources and infrastructure that we've been able to tap into. But we've also fed into their infrastructure by looking at different types of containers, and we fed that into their team as well. So it's really been a win-win for both communities. I'm going to leave Brian actually talk about the 5G testbed and the multi-domain lab that they have between Dell and VMware, because I think really I wouldn't do it justice, and there has been a significant amount of investment locally in developing this infrastructure. But the next phase is really putting this into the lab in Cork and testing it out on this testbed. So maybe Brian, you might just come in and just talk about that infrastructure.
Yeah, sure. So the Centre of Excellence labs are actually located in 3 locations, and there's one in Limerick, one in Cork, and one in our Cork Information Exchange. But the primary kind of areas of focus for the Cork and Limerick centres in Ovens and Dell and Limerick. And we have access to RAN edge technology. So people who know that, it's about CUs and DUs and accessing radios and spectrum. And in that lab itself, there's various stacks and partners and customers, of which VMware is one, Vodafone, Orange, and a few others. And really, we're interested in creating, the work streams are kind of broken up into kind of 3 different work streams. The first is developing the lab itself. So that does take some capital investment, like Donna said, and it does take, implementing the platform plan. So the platform plan, VMware has one platform, but we also have open source platforms, and we want to create that competitive environment. And the third piece then is just the research aspect of it, right? So that's where Enable and Donna come in with some of their research. But in addition to that, we have research going on with Horizon Europe previously. And we have a nice partnership, I think, between our industry partners like with Dell and Orange and Vodafone, the IDA and the feasibility study and the access to Connect research, and of course the talent in MTU. So we're kind of progressing along those lines. But we have big plans for this lab, including many enterprise use cases, which is kind of where my background comes in from an enterprise IT perspective. and how we can take the research, make it, productize it as best we can, and then run proof of concepts, like Donna said. And those proof of concepts can be, connecting our branch office network, connecting to our distributed workforce at home in the future, and kind of like reimagining the internet as well, which I'll speak about in a little bit maybe. But yeah, that really in a nutshell is what the COE lab is. And we're excited. I don't think this is the last research, put it that way, that we'll be doing for this COE.
Great. No, I'm sure it won't be the last. I've heard a lot of things as well about the research. We actually held the most recent webinar of the Cork Smart Gateway was on 5G. So there were like insights on research development in that topic. So thank you very much to both of you. I'm going to invite to our third group of speakers. We have the collaboration between Valeo and Liro. Jonathan Horgan from Valeo. Jonathan is a computer vision and deep learning architecture manager and senior expert at Valeo Vision Systems. He has worked in the field of computer vision for over 16 years with a focus on automotive computer vision for advanced driver assistance systems and automated parking and driving. So we'll be talking about smart mobility here. And Professor Eddie Johns from Liro, he holds a BE degree and PhD degree in electronic engineering, both from National University of Ireland, Galway. His research topic was on development of computational auditory models for speech processing. He's currently a professor at NUI in Galway, and also head of the School of Engineering there. A number of as well author papers and collaborations between the two of you. So I would like to actually ask first Jonathan, and thank you very much both of you for joining us today. What were the benefits that Liro brought to Valeo, to your organization?
Yeah, thanks for having us. So yeah, I guess before we worked with Liro, through the Liro Centre, we were working with Martin and Nadine NUIG for maybe 20 years. And the guys joined Liro. The guys from NUIG joined Liro in 2017. And I guess that the main thing it allowed us to do was we would have one or two PhDs, collaborative projects that we've been running over the years. It allowed us to kind of scale up the project. So we would have one or two researchers, and buying equipment was maybe difficult in terms of buying equipment for one. Whereas when we went with Liro, we created a large project with 7 or 8 PhD researchers, postdocs, but also physical infrastructure and equipment that is kind of vital to the research we do, to allow NUIG to be autonomous and in terms of forgive the pun, but autonomous in developing autonomous vehicles. So they have their own vehicle, they have their own perception sensors, and they all have their own infrastructure, which allowed us to have a much bigger project. It also allowed us, working with Liro, then allowed us to branch off into other institutes, because obviously when you work with a research center, it's not located in one university or with one principal investigators. It's multiple, which allowed us to branch off and also work with Professor Greg Proven in UCC and Dr. John McDonald in Maynooth, which are working in areas of interest for us as well. So that was a big thing. So scale of the project and allowing us to access more researchers through the Liro Centre, and the ease of access to the research as well, through having a single research agreement that was agreed with Liro. So it didn't matter who or what university you were collaborating with. It was always through a single research agreement, which speeded up collaboration and ease of us being able to talk with different researchers from different sites, because it was all under a single research agreement, rather than having to be individually negotiated with multiple universities, which is actually a big help as well.
Of course. Great. Thank you, Jonathan. Eddie, what would be the key attributes of working with Valeo? What did you see there? that work.
Yes, thanks, Vanessa. And again, thanks for inviting us along to this. So as Jonathan said, I'm a part of a research group in NUI Galway based in the School of Engineering. We call ourselves the Connacht Automotive Research Group, or CAR Group. And I manage that along with my colleague Martin Glavin. So as Jonathan said, we've been working with Valeo for many, many years, even before we got involved in Lero. And over that time, that allowed us to build up the relationship with Valeo and the trust, and one of the earlier speakers mentioned trust as well, and that's important in terms of developing the relationship. I think the key attributes are, and I think it was Manure who mentioned this earlier, in terms of the engagement of industry, it's not just about money going across the wall to fund a project and nothing else happening or no further engagement for a couple of years. The constant engagement between the academic partner and the industry partner is key to this. So I think one of the very strong attributes of our relationship with Valeo is that, the manner in which we engage. And this happens on a number of levels. First of all, we have group meetings. Jonathan said the group is getting larger, so we have group meetings every fortnight, and Jonathan and some of his colleagues from Valeo will attend those meetings, and they're mainly technical meetings with the researchers. That's one thing. We also have less frequent management meetings with Jonathan and some of the other senior managers in Valeo, just to discuss strategic research, strategic directions, further collaboration. And thirdly, there's a lot of individual back and forth between the individual researchers and researchers and engineers in Valeo itself. So most of, if not all of the researchers, they have what we kind of refer to colloquially as a technical buddy in the company. And there's this constant back and forth between our researchers and the engineers in Valeo. And most of the time, myself and Martin as supervisors don't even know that's happening. It just happens. And that's kind of a testament to the strength of the relationship. So I think that's the key there. In terms of the other attributes, and again, previous speakers have spoken about this, it's great for us as well. The problems we're working on are real. So, we're doing academic research, but we're working on real problems. And that, of course, makes it more exciting and more interesting for us and for our researchers. This is a particularly interesting area, particularly exciting area, a lot of exciting technologies like computer vision and machine learning and so on. I think another thing as well, that in terms of the actual collaboration in the research, it's not just that Valeo, are providing us with a problem and providing some technical input. The researchers in Valeo are very tightly engaged with the actual research work in the university as well. And another way in which this manifests itself is in terms of co-authoring publications, for example. So scientific publications are obviously very important to us in the university, and I would say are becoming increasingly important in industry as well, just in terms of building up the research base and so on. So there's a lot of that type of activity as well. And so I think they're probably among the key attributes of the relationship and how it works. And again, I would say, it is something that takes time to build, but it's certainly worth the investment in time on both sides, because you get to a very sustainable and relationship that's again built on that word trust.
Great. Thank you, Eddie. Jonathan, about that collaboration as well that you just mentioned that it took place from long ago, and now it's evolving to this. How important is currently that collaboration with Lero, and what has it done for your organization?
Yeah, so the collaboration is very important to us. I think it was already mentioned as well by Manure. It allows us to, as he said, successful companies are very busy and very short in time. So we don't get to, we're, I guess, focused on the series production projects, the products that are kind of immediate in the next 2-3 years, will be going series. And we're always interested in finding out what's our roadmap for the future, what direction we should be going. And as I said, we don't always get time to work on that. So that's a great opportunity for collaborative projects with universities, where we give them time, or we give them an idea, a broad scope, but it has to be fluid. And that was mentioned as well already. It's not handing over a set of requirements and expecting them to be fulfilled exactly to it. It has to be collaborative along the way, because directions will change, technology changes, and there's massive changes in the automotive industry over the last 5 or 6 years. There's no way a project can have a life cycle. You would be able to specify a project with a 4 or 5 year time frame without any changes. So that's really key. So it allows us to define roadmaps. It allows us to have, there's a benefit to university engagement as well in terms of our own, I guess, profile for OEMs in our case, or our customers. It's good for them to know that we're involved in state-of-the-art research, that we're engaged with universities, that we have, I guess, to strengthen our own research ability, that we can publish our findings and still feel that we're I guess, strong enough to be able to publish our findings and still think that we stand out enough from the rest of the field to be good good suppliers. It's also very, very good for recruitment for us. Having university engagement shows that we're engaged in cutting edge research, but it also, again, it allows us to publish, and many people coming from PhD backgrounds wish to continue publishing when they go to industry. That's something that they maintain an interest in, and that's good for us to be able to show that we continue to do that when we're engaging with universities. And I said I have benefits to recruitment, access to multiple institutions, multiple researchers across the centres, and I guess it allows us to fill weaknesses. So not just future projects, but maybe weaknesses we have in the company, or because there's a strong shift in the industry to a new area, like for example cybersecurity. When we have access to centres that have a broad range that we might not be able to sustain or maintain or develop as quickly in industry, we can gain knowledge through collaborative projects and collaboration with these university centres to build up knowledge in these areas quicker. So that's a big benefit.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Yes, we hear about the development of the team, the development of the organization, the professional development as well of who are working for the project. And Eddie, where would you see the future of your research in the sense? Like, how do you plan to push those boundaries that maybe appeared? Can you tell us more about the forthcoming plans for this?
Yes, so our primary, I mean, in the context of development of connected and autonomous vehicles, our primary focus is on the perception part of that. So our technology work is in the area of signal processing, image processing, computer vision, and so on. So we're trying to help vehicles understand what's in the vicinity. Now, it's a problem that has been worked on for many years, but our particular focus is on the kind of the difficult cases, the particular scenarios that cause autonomous vehicles particular problems. So challenging situations like, for example, bad weather, nighttime operation, very complex road scenarios, junctions, and so on. The technology, it has been shown to work reasonably well, in good conditions, but these are the cases that are particularly challenging and ones that are particularly important in terms of, achieving goals of connected smart mobility and connected society and so on and so forth. So our plan really is to kind of continue pushing on those hard problems. In that context, how we propose to do that, Jonathan mentioned earlier that one of the benefits of involvement with LIRO is scale. So we had been working away on the technology, but involvement with LIRO allowed us just to kind of leverage what we had already and significantly build on that. And one of the things about that, of course, is equipment, facilities. Through involvement with Valeo and LIRO, we have a very good test infrastructure now associated with our laboratory, a test vehicle. And we're also equipping the NUI Galway campus as a kind of a test bed to allow us to gather data for this work. So these developments are going to be key in our ability to push the technology forward and to continue to solve, I suppose, those particularly hard problems in the context of autonomous vehicles.
Great, thank you very much. I know to both of you, and I'm going to ask for the same that I asked the first group. Can you give us some words of encouragement and some motivation as well for attendees here that are coming from SMEs, that are coming as well from academia. What can you say to them that will make them, that will give them a little push as well to start a collaboration like yours? Go with Jonathan first.
Okay. Yeah, I guess it's just many of the things I've said already in terms of the benefits. I guess, you know, future technology, visibility and research, benefits to recruitment, development of your own internal teams, getting to work with researchers that are, you know, highly knowledgeable, highly engaged. So getting to ramp up quicker. And what we found is that you know, that working with universities, they're extremely flexible. You know, unlike, I guess, passing a project to a contract house where they don't want to change the requirements, it's in both the university's benefit and the industry's benefit that the project is meeting the needs, because it shows the benefit of research to university, and it gives a good outcome for the company as well. So there's really, I guess, very few downsides that I can think of to doing how we work with the SFI centers is through collaborative projects and PhD programs. So that there's really no downsides there. So I'd say just go out there and at least try a couple of projects first to see how it goes, and as been mentioned multiple times, build that trust. Because I know it might be a little scary at the start to share data with the university, and the fear of I guess losing data. In terms of much of the work we do will involve sharing data. So you might be a bit tentative at the start, but I think start with some projects and build trust from there, and I think it will work out for everyone involved. Yeah.
Brilliant, Jonathan. Thank you very much. Eddie?
Yeah, just to add to that. So I suppose from the perspective of academia, there's kind of two relationships here. So one is the relationship with the industry partner, and the other is the relationship with the research center. So in terms, again, I think a lot of it has been said already, but I suppose really the key, one very important point, I think is something Jonathan mentioned earlier, and also Manure, where the universities provide an opportunity for companies to get some work done on technologies, you know, that they may not have the time or the bandwidth to do right now, but it's something of interest, particularly sort of medium to long term. And that fits in very nicely with the kind of the university research timelines as well. And that's not to say that shorter term research can't be done as well, and the mechanisms to do that exist. But there's a particular benefit, I think, in looking at things like PhD level research, which is kind of slightly longer term. The universities are very flexible, very adaptable. For the universities, as long as the problems are interesting, you know, and there's an opportunity to apply the scientific expertise that exists within the universities, generally speaking, we're happy. Beyond that, of course, then there, you know, the benefits to the universities we mentioned already in terms of the making the problem, making it real for us. The human capital benefits to industry as well have also been mentioned. And also, I suppose, the research centres, what that brings, I suppose, two things really. The scale has been mentioned already, but also I think one of the things that we've observed as well is that it does give you access to kind of a wider range of expertise, even beyond sort of the immediate technical needs. So I think Mark in his presentation kind of alluded to this earlier as well. He commented that each of the research centres has its own particular technical focus. But collectively, there's a vast breadth of knowledge there. So even within Lero, for example, we have our group, and our collaboration with Vallejo is based around particular technical problems and technical needs. But there's access to other expertise as well, you know, whether it's business and regulatory or human factors or whatever. And then beyond that, you know, through engagement with the other research centres, Enable, Connect, Insight, and so on, you meet other people and you get exposure to what other people are doing, and you just never know where serendipitously, you know, you'll learn something, or you'll find out, oh, somebody's working on this particular problem, and that may be of relevance. So I think that kind of connectivity and that larger network is important as well. So I think they're probably the kind of the benefits, both in terms of the immediate benefits